Hi, I'm Morella DeVoe. Welcome to the third video on the series I'm doing on the 4 pillars of health, which we all need to cultivate no matter the state of our health. So pillar number 3 today is a healthy inflammatory response. We all need to have a healthy inflammatory response. So I'm going to tell you a little about what exactly is inflammation and why does inflammation become an issue to our bodies, and then what are some things, the basic things that you need to do to bring your inflammation response under check. So first of all, what is inflammation? So inflammation sounds like a bad thing, and we might be inclined to think that we don't want any inflammation. However, inflammation is actually your body's natural healing response. I think of inflammation as like your body being so wise that it sends its healing armies to wherever they're needed. They're little ambulances, if you will. So one example of inflammation that is part of the healthy healing response of your body is the classic twisted, swollen ankle. So you twist your ankle, you're on a hike, you twist your ankle, and that ankle swells. You might have a micro tear or maybe just a pull or whatever, but your ankle swells. And that swelling kind of immobilizes your foot. You can't walk the same way, you can't twist it again. So the swelling is helping to keep that joint somewhat immobilized so you don't hurt it even further. And so your army goes to work, your internal healing ambulances, they go to work and they help to repair whatever, whether it's the tear or the pull, help restore the ligaments or muscle, whatever was hurt. And then once that healing has taken place, your anti-inflammatory response pulls that swelling down. All of the fluid flows back to where it needs to go into your circulatory system, or your lymphatic system drains it, and so the swelling goes down, and now your ankle is perfectly healed. However, chronic inflammation is inflammation that never returns back to normal. So imagine that your ankle never the swelling never goes away. The ankle doesn't return to normal. That swollen ankle, even if it's now healed, is going to create issues. You're not going to be able to walk the same way if the swollen ankle stays that way. You might start having issues in your hips or your back because now your alignment isn't great when you're walking. So chronic inflammation starts to create other issues. And what we don't realize is that there are a lot of our common everyday health issues that are essentially a chronic inflammation issue. So for example, I had cystic acne. There's a huge inflammation component to cystic acne. Allergies are also kind of a chronic inflammation. There's also immune system component. High cholesterol is an issue of chronic inflammation. And taking a statin to force cholesterol down doesn't address the underlying inflammation, the reason why there's inflammation in your circulatory system. In fact, if you look this up, you're going to find that the statistics don't show that taking a statin drug actually reduces the number of heart attacks. People are still having heart attacks. Cholesterol drugs do not reduce the incidence of heart attacks. They just reduce your cholesterol. So, question, why take them? But that's a whole different subject. So inflammation, chronic inflammation, underscores a lot of our health issues. And if you're someone, a final example, if you're someone with an autoimmune condition, there's an inherently a bed of chronic inflammation prior to developing the autoimmune system. So inflammation is a big component of that immune system misfiring. So we all really need to look at what are the sources of inflammation, of this kind of chronic misfiring inflammatory response that doesn't kind of balance itself out, and how do we help our body have a healthy inflammatory response? Remember, we're not talking about never having inflammation. We're talking about a healthy inflammatory response where the body does what it needs to do to heal, and once healing takes place, then the body returns back to normal. So let's talk about, first of all, what are the things that create an unhealthy inflammatory response that get your inflammation kind of out of control. The first two things I have to mention are alcohol and sugar. Our modern world has skyrocketed the options for alcohol and sugar consumption. Sugar is in everything. It's funny because I've been doing this work now for about 10 years, and I feel like, well, everybody knows now that there's sugar in everything. And just last week, I was talking to a dear friend who's starting to clean up her diet, and she said, we've just discovered that the ham we used to eat every day has sugar in it. There's sugar in everything. So alcohol and sugar, big drivers of inflammation that runs out of control. A third one, almost just as important, are fried oils. And not just any fried oil, because there are certain oils that you can heat and they're not as damaging as others. And you might not be thinking of the ones that are actually better for you. The oils that get very damaged under heat are canola oil, safflower oil, and corn oil. So your big label, big jugs of cooking oil, those oils become very heated, very damaged under heat, and those damaged oils become highly pro-inflammatory. There are other oils like coconut oil or avocado oil that are a lot more stable under heat, and so they're better to cook with. But the traditional, French fry oil is horrific. And French fries, it's almost arguable that the thing that makes French fries so awful is the damaged oil in which they're cooked. Very, very pro-inflammatory. Charbroiled blackened foods are also not great. So even though grilling season is coming and you love your little bits of charbroil on your steak or your chicken and your veggies, that charbroil is actually not great. So you want to try to avoid that. Another high driver of inflammation are artificial ingredients and artificial sweeteners and coloring and preservatives, the things that your body actually is like, what is this? You eat it and your body says, I don't know what this is. How do I deal with this? They tend to be drivers of inflammation. High glycemic foods, so going back to the sugar, high glycemic foods are also a driver of inflammation. So our standard American diet has a lot of these high glycemic foods, and those are things like breads. Think of your bagel, your muffin, your sandwich, your pizza, your pasta, cookies, and a lot of other things that are pro-inflammatory. So we look at our standard American diet, lots of sugar, lots of breads, lots of charbroiled meats, artificial ingredients and processed foods. So we have a diet that is primarily pro-inflammatory. Other things that cause inflammation, even though they might be very healthy foods, are foods that are either difficult to digest or maybe foods that you have a slight allergy or intolerance to them and you don't know it. And so things that are difficult to digest are beans and grains, especially if you haven't soaked and fermented them. Those foods actually are very difficult to digest, and so they can be drivers of inflammation. Dairy is another classic one that can drive inflammation, increase allergies, increase joint pain. And so those are foods that you can stand and experiment of eliminating them and seeing how your body does. And you can watch the first video in this series, video number 1, where we talk about detoxification if you want some ideas as to how to do that. And there are even another group of very healthy foods that can also drive inflammation, such as a group of vegetables called nightshades, and that includes tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, and potatoes. And these nightshade foods, they're great for the majority of people, but people who have arthritis, a lot of people with arthritis notice a significant difference in their joints when they avoid nightshade foods. So that's another one you might want to experiment with if arthritis is an issue for you. So what is an anti-inflammatory diet like then? We've talked about our standard American diet, French fries, breads, lots of charbroiled meats, sugar, alcohol, dairy for some people, mostly pro-inflammatory. What is an anti-inflammatory diet? Some of you may have heard of the Mediterranean diet or the French paradox. And the French paradox is that we Americans look at the French and think, look at everything they eat. How do they not have the heart disease issues that we have? Because heart disease is not as prevalent in France as it is in the US. And they eat a lot more butter, they eat a lot more cheese, they eat a lot more fat than we do. So what are they doing differently? So we look at the Mediterranean diet for inspiration, and it turns out that on a regular basis, they eat a lot of foods that are anti-inflammatory. The number one class of foods in that list is lots of fresh vegetables, lots and lots of fresh vegetables. The French are known for grocery shopping every day. They buy their groceries on a daily basis and they eat what's fresh from the market. Lots of fresh vegetables, lots of fruits in season. They're not eating watermelon and bananas all year round. They're eating berries in season, fruit in season. They also eat lots of healthy fats like olives and nuts and fish oil. They eat a lot of fish and lean meats. They eat some aged cheeses like Parmesan, and they eat eggs. And this is the bulk of the Mediterranean anti-inflammatory diet. The majority of the food comes from this. And then, they add the extra cheese, they add, the occasional croissant or pastry, and it doesn't tip the balance of their diet. Now we, in our standard American diet, we have mostly pro-inflammatory foods, and we throw a slice of tomato or a slice of lettuce on the sandwich. Does not tip the balance towards an anti-inflammatory diet. So you want the majority of your foods to be from this anti-inflammatory group. And the rule that I like to follow is the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you're giving your body the best nutrients, colorful foods, fresh vegetables, foods in season, not processed, healthy fats. And then, you save your 20% for the little extra things, the delights, that you can have once in a while, and it doesn't tip your balance where you're primarily eating an anti-inflammatory diet. Now, an additional level for those of you who may have some inflammation issues, and inflammation takes, again, the shape of any aches and pains, joint issues, allergies, cholesterol, again, is an inflammatory issue, irritable bowel syndrome, and even those of you who have an autoimmune condition. All of these things are supported by eating an anti-inflammatory diet and even looking at some supplements that help with your healthy inflammation response. The first one that needs to be mentioned is vitamin D. Vitamin D deficiency has been linked to a host of issues. And of course, it is a critical modulating vitamin in our immune system. So our immune system can't work well or right if we are vitamin D deficient. But it's also a huge player in the overall inflammation response. So getting your vitamin D checked is one of the most helpful things you can do for your health because vitamin D is involved in so many things. My husband and I just got our vitamin D checked last year, and we discovered we do really well, but our vitamin D actually needed to improve. So vitamin D. And then there are other supplements derived from food like turmeric. So turmeric is the orange spice in curry. It's an orange little root. In some health food stores, you can actually get it. You can put it in your food. You can put it in your smoothies and your juices fresh, and it's extraordinary. But you can also get the powder now to absorb turmeric, to absorb the spice, and you get that benefit, that anti-inflammatory benefit. It needs to be accompanied by fat. So you need to have it in like a coconut milk, for example, a hot coconut milk, or a tea where you maybe add some almond milk or coconut milk, or in your hot curry. It's best absorbed when it's hot and it's in the presence of fat. And there are other colorful supplements like astaxanthin is the coloring in shrimp that comes from algae. That astaxanthin is highly antioxidant, and it's also a great support for inflammation. And resveratrol is the pigment in red grapes and blueberries. It's a wonderful pigment, also antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. So, my friends, I want you to look at and understand, where is inflammation, excessive inflammation, showing up in your body? Is it your skin? Is it your allergies? Is it joint pain? Is it in your digestion? Is it in autoimmune conditions, high cholesterol? It shows up in a number of ways, and take some steps to start managing your inflammation and bringing it into that healthy level, a healthy inflammatory response. I hope this has been helpful, and please do share this with friends that might benefit from this. If you have a friend with high cholesterol or some joint issues, please share this with them. You might be gifting them the opportunity of a new insight or a new tool that they haven't tried yet. So spread the love. Much love to you, and I'll see you on video 4. See you next time. Bye-bye.